Bhutta Vardanya Shri Bhadra Varsa Manya Sarva Siddhi Hong Dagi Jitsun Lama Tuje Che Nyamda Dala Tuje Sikso So Gebe Shesan Dala Tendo So Uyon Sunge Nawa Tsedo So Yiningne Sowa Debe Tse Dechen Korlo Visu Yela Sambe Dudum Malupa Geme Lungi Drubra Jingelo Tsoni Sodan Diktun Shapet Dungi Nam Geyin Su Lekshune Lapchen Tsoni Yonsu Zopada Chera Nyedun Chanra Jingelo Chanchu Pargi Ninsen Tukuntu Nyu Peme Siudru Lekshune Chanchu Drube Geken Kunshishi Tungen dela drubra chingilo dagi lona chela chokpadan chemin samjur ngemba shiwa chedan tumbe dödön malupa beme lungi drubra chingilo dorna tingne tseraba tamchedan techi pardu nekab tamchet reise kyamne lama keleme tukche chingi dala siksoso gongyab drewe nyamda dachala jetsun lame tuje rabgongne Kodan sungi nawa drame tu nyam sunyongwe kesan toprasho kewa kundu yanda lama dan drame chiki pel sadan lamgi yunde rabzone dorje changi kopa nyurutob shoya pakyuke kodan dagi alu pakyuke sundan dagi nga Pakyuke tukdan dagi ten yerme çıktı çingi olu Makyuke kudan dagi olu Makyuke sundan dagi nga Makyuke tukdan dagi ten yerme çıktı çingi Om Muni Muni Maha Muni Shakya Muni Soha Om Mahamuni Shakya Muni Swaha Om Muni Muni Mahamuni Shakya Muni Soha Sashipeki Choshiameto Tamare Rabalingashi Nidegem Padi Sange Shinto Mikte Ulvarki Drokun Namda Shingla Chöpar Shoyidam Guru Ratna Mindrala Kamniryatayami Sangye Chedan Tsogi Chonam Lai Chancho Pardo Dani Kyapsu Chi Dagi Chishe Gibe Sonam Ki drola pinchira sangye drupar shua sangye chedan tsogi chonam la chanchu pardo dani kyapsu chi dagi chushe gibe sonam ki drola pinchira sangye drupar shua sangye chedan tsogi chonam la chanchu pardo dani kyapsu chi dagi chushe gibe sonam ki drola pinchira sangye drupar shu.
In the Buddha, Dharma, and Sangha, I take refuge until enlightenment. With the practice of generosity and other perfections, may I obtain Buddhahood for the benefit of all sentient beings.
In the Buddha, Dharma, and Sangha, I take refuge until enlightenment. Through the practice of generosity and the other perfections, may I attain Buddhahood for the benefit of all sentient beings. Namo alhaye ke dan ludan jinke trubunda da mi ke nam dan trobokun ke tanam che tsampa tamche ke to dagi chöten to tamche ke to dagi chöten to.
Hello.
Dir jukpa ni kelpa sangwashe lekpar somla gawe shingidang rapse zumbe nyamdan dembai nami nyogi kyon sumpong la nyuns. Grande Lama Tsongkhapa,
The great Lama Tsongkhapa, the founder of the Gelugpa tradition, at the beginning of a text called Ringla Salten, the light that clarifies the five paths that has to do with the Tantra of Goya Samadra. And my teacher in Tibet, Kachin Losang Punsok, the abbot of Teshilumpo, he used to use this, he used to cite this often, which would translate in know how fortunate you are to enter here, and reflecting clearly on this fortune, shine with joy. Lekpar sonma, song is this imperative, so shine, reflect on this clearly, and shine in a state with the state of having a luminous smile, extremely bright smile, in this state, nyamda nepa, in this state with a very bright smile. Listen with attention, abandoning the three defective vessels. So know how lucky you are to enter here. Imagine the sun that has this enormous power. The sun gives life and has a very strong energy. When the sun comes towards us, the rays comes to all of us in the same way, and it's incredibly vast. But to make fire from the sun's rays, you need a magnifying glass. What does that magnifying glass do? It gathers up the sun's rays and brings them to one point, basically multiplying its power. Similarly, it's described that when we see all the teachings of Buddha, they're extremely vast and profound, like the ocean, like the sun, many sun rays. But the difficulty is understanding the essence, making fire, finding the gem within the ocean. And I invite you, if you want to lose yourself, to enter into a site called the 84,000. If you want to get lost in this ocean, where all of the sutra and tantra texts of Buddhist teachings are being translated into English. The various sutras are taken. I mean, even in Tibetan language, I don't know hardly anyone who goes to read the original sutras because they're explained in a way. I mean, the language is over 2,500 years old. It's repetitive. You read, and you're looking for the point. It's not easy to understand. And Buddha also, he taught in different ways to different types of people, making this all more complex. That's why we need people who have had the opportunity to study deeply, to have a comprehension, and have been able to take all of those teachings and summarize them somehow, put them in the right order that we can understand the extreme. For example, the Tantra of Guhya transmitted by Buddha Shakyamuni. And when you read it, it's incredibly difficult to understand something. And then Nagarjuna, what he goes to explain it, and he puts it in the correct order. Not that it was wrong as it was originally explained, but it was written in a way all mixed up. Why? Because it's said that it's a practice, it's a kind of path that one shouldn't pick up without a qualified guide. And so to make sure that you have a qualified guide, the teachings are encrypted somehow. So when Nagarjuna, 600 years later, and said, to read this text correctly, you need to start from this chapter, then skip these chapters, then read this part. It was kind of encrypted. And Nagarjuna added his commentary, and others commented the commentary of Nagarjuna. And then over the centuries, there were people who had not only a predisposition to teach Buddha's teachings, but they also had this ability, this opportunity to dedicate their lives solely to that. They would study Buddha's teachings, meditate, and practice. That was their full-time job for their entire lives. And many of these people left us this great gift that can be seen as a magnifying glass, where we are really getting the essence of the teachings so that they're also easily applied to our lives. We're in front of this ocean of teachings. And there's something else too. To do what these masters of the past did in the past, where it's a little late. I mean, I started earlier, but if one should start one's teachings, like full-time teachings, between very, very young, and live in a context where one doesn't do anything other than that. Is there anyone here that fits that description? Even now that you're getting close to Buddhist teachings, getting closer, how much time do we actually dedicate to Buddhist teachings? The crazy thing, I don't know if it's the right way, the right word, but even those of us who have the actual physical opportunity, let's say, if one wanted to lock oneself up 16 hours a day to study, um, he's still not able because we're distracted by our livelihood and by problems and by pleasures. So we're distracted by many things. So we live in a time that if we want to practice seriously, if we want to transform our being, we're no longer in a context where we can actually go so deep into every subject, because when we deepen that first subject, then we don't have space for the second, and the years go by, and as the years pass, our cognitive abilities lessen. I mean, I see this in myself. And just as a side note, a quick side note, we have another problem in today's world. I mean, having information at the tip of our of our fingers, and often not having to use our own heads to look for information or to reason. So our ability to study and to look for and to understand, I mean, we're losing all of these abilities terribly. Just a short time ago, I wanted, I had a doubt about something, and I wasn't able right away. After a while, yes, but at the beginning, it was difficult for me to understand where to go to find the answer, because I couldn't find the answer in Google or in artificial intelligence. I had a moment where I didn't know where to go. So getting to we're getting to a point where our own mental, our cognitive skills are lessening, as the great 11th century master Atisha said. Let's remember that Atisha got to Tibet in a very difficult context, because Buddhism in Tibet was extremely degenerated. There had been a king, first of all. Before him, Guru Padmasambhava came to Tibet, and Buddhism was quite widespread in Tibet. And at a certain point, there was a king called the King Langtarma, who was against Buddhism. And what he did was he destroyed all the monasteries, he killed the masters, he destroyed sacred objects. And there were 3 monks, if I remember well, 4 maybe, who were meditating in the mountains on retreat. And one day they come down from their retreat place, and the King Langtarma had just been recently killed. I don't know if any of you have seen the dance of the black hat. Maybe you've seen this. There's a huge black hat, and there's with these long sleeves, and so so what happened is the man that was on the horse, wearing this big hat with fringes, so you couldn't see his face, and he was hiding a sword under these long sleeves. So anyway, so these 3 or 4 monks came down, and they needed they had the vows, and they would need to then they were able to transmit the vows, and they were actually originally from China, and you can see sometimes on monks' robes there's a blue piping around the shoulder, and that's to remember these monks. To say there's also a touch of their lineage too. So there's this king who wanted to. He recognized that Buddhism was not healthy, it needed to be revived, and so he knew of Atisha in India, where, for example, there were all the centers of studies, like Nalanda University, for example. It was internationally famous at the time, and Vikramashila Monastery was the other one. These great centers of study, and so this king he sends a group of people to invite Atisha, but let's imagine the following: there's a master. Let's think of our own context. Think about one of the best universities, and think of the best professor at the best university, the most respected professor at the best university, and then imagine that at some point someone comes from a faraway land, people known for being barbarians, and they want to invite this professor to their land. I mean, they say, well, okay, well, maybe we'll send you the fifth in line, but not the best. So the king at the time, Chanshub, he was very smart. To show that they had the right conditions to invite him, he wanted to show that they were very rich, even though they weren't. And so he wanted to bring a lot of offerings. And so he started to gather money, to gather gold, to invite Atisha. Not that Atisha needed money, but it was a way to show that he had the right conditions to invite this great master. To say that we're not, the last in line from some far off forgotten land. So towards the end of this fundraising, actually towards half, he got to he got to this land. He met this other king who invited him, but he was actually against Buddhism, and he imprisoned him. So then his nephew goes and says, if you want your uncle back, you need to bring his weight in gold. And so now the fundraising is not about inviting Atisha, it's about saving their own king. So one day the nephew arrives there. They weigh the money that he was able to bring, and he said, the money that you've brought, the gold that you've brought, is enough for the body but not the head. So so the king was able to speak with his nephew, and the king said, actually, my life, I've already given what I could. It's more important. The teachings of Buddha, the spreading of Buddha's teachings in Tibet is much more important than my life. So take this gold and let me die here and bring this money to India and tell Atisha that I am inviting him not only with these offerings, but with also my life. I'm offering my life for him to come, and they let him die there. So they say that when he arrived there, they went to the abbot. Remember that he's one of the greatest masters. one of the greatest masters in India. And actually in India, Buddhism was degenerating. So it was a very fragile moment, an important moment for these great monasteries like Nalanda. And so the abbot reflects and he says, Atisha, he of course will have the last word. Atisha said that he wanted to go on retreat to be able to reflect and answer, and so he did a retreat and he saw Tara as if with a vision, as if she were speaking to him directly. And she said, if you go to Tibet, your life will be shorter but more beneficial. And so he agreed to go, and the abbot said, okay, but you need to come back after three years. I think he said 3 years. So it gives this commitment to those also who invited him. I can't remember if it was Jan Chup. I'm always confused which was the nephew and it was the king. Anyway, he gives the commitment with his life to bring him back in 2 or 3 years, whatever it was, and then Atisha goes. He was incredibly successful in that short time, but then he needed to go back. And so at this point, just imagine this moment. So those 2 or 3 years have passed, and he's about to go back to India. So in that moment where he's about to leave, the king goes to him and says, great master, thank you for everything that you've given us, this time that you've spent here. Please give us one last piece of advice before leaving, because leaving also meant never coming back. It's not like traveling today. And there's this very small verse, this little booklet, the last words, last advice from Atisha. And within that it says, during the day we're distracted, and at night we sleep. The objects of knowledge are so many, and life goes by quickly. Be careful to use time and resources for what is actually meaningful. And we're talking about the 11th century in Tibet. Imagine what he would say today. So, just to finish the story, because it's important also for these teachings that we're going to see. So Atisha, at this point, he leaves, but then it goes to return to India. But there was a war in Nepal, and it was too dangerous for him to try to go through this warring area. So at this point, they sent someone to tell the abbot that he couldn't come. But he said, Atisha said, bring the abbot this manuscript that I've written. The Chanchup Lamdrum is called, which is the path, the light that clarifies the graduated path towards enlightenment, a text that changed the face of Buddhism. It after was known as Lamrim. So he writes this text where Atisha, he composes this text and he explains it step by step from the beginning to enlightenment, like a manual, step by step what one needs to do. And when the abbot in India received this text, he was deeply touched. And he said, if it had Atisha remained here in India, he would have never written something so special, because in India, Buddha was taken for granted, and instead in Tibet it was new again. And so he really needed to explain clearly and summarize the path. And at that point, the abbot said, this text is phenomenal, and so tell the king, tell Atisha that my commitment, the commitment that that they had to bring Atisha back, is abolished. And so in the end, Atisha spent 12 years in Tibet, and in those 12 years, he transmitted many, many teachings. But there's a certain part of his teachings that he gave to very, very few disciples. Very few. Fewer than 10, we can say. And among one was Drum Tompa, a lay disciple, the one who actually translated these teachings to the Tibetan community. Let's take a little jump. After maybe a century and a half after the death of Atisha, there was a master called Geshe Chekawa. Geshe Chekawa wrote the 8 verses of mind training. A very strong text, deep text, direct. And a practitioner named Geshe Chekawa, he read this text. He was deeply, deeply touched and says, I need to know who wrote this, because I need to have this transmission. And so he left from Kham tradition, and he traveled for 3 or 4 months to get to Lhasa in central Tibet. And before getting to the town of Lhasa, he told someone he was going there to meet this master, and he was told, I'm sorry to give you this to give you this news, but Geshe Chekawa, he died a few days before, and he took the offerings that he had brought and he threw them up in the air as if he's still giving to them. Anyway, he still goes to Lhasa, and he went to find the 2 main disciples of Geshe Chekawa, and he follows Geshe Chekawa, one of the disciples, and he never missed one of his teachings. So Geshe Chekawa went to every teaching of Geshe Chekawa, and he was always present. After 2 years, one day he found Geshe Chekawa, who was seated. He was actually doing a circumambulation around a stupa, and he said, "Oh, great master, may I ask you a question?" He said, "Yes." So he took his cloak and his zen, and he put it on the floor and asked him to sit down. He sat down. He did 3 circumambulations around him, 3 prostrations. He went towards him and he said, "Great master, I came here," and he actually recites the text of the 8 verses of the mind training. The first verse actually says, "May I always cherish all limited beings by considering how far superior they are to wish granting gems for actualizing the supreme aim." And whenever I come into the first verse, may I always cherish all limited beings by considering how far superior they are. And he says, "Great master, I came to you because I wanted to receive teachings on this text. But in these 3 years, 2 years, 3 years, actually I never saw anything in your teachings that even make reference to these teachings. Why? Is it because these teachings don't exist? It's because they're not valid? Why have you never talked about them?" Sure. And Geshe Chekawa, he unites his hands in respect, and he said, "Not only do these teachings exist, but they are most excellent. And the reason why you have not heard of them up till now is because those who come to me are not mature enough to hear them." And he asked, so what are the prerequisites to be able to receive these teachings? And he said, the necessary condition is mostly just one, who comes to listen to these teachings need to have the total determination and commitment to put these teachings into practice. And that's why, and those who come to me mostly are not mature enough. And that's why these teachings have been kept secret. And at that point, Geshe Chekawa takes the commitment. He receives these secret teachings, secret in the sense that they weren't public. And he was side by side with his master for 22 years, dedicating all of his time to this. After this period, one day, he writes the essence of these teachings, and he writes it out, and saying that if these teachings aren't written out, then over time they would get lost. Because if he needed to wait for someone to have the right characteristics to be able to transmit orally these teachings, he said that there's a chance they would get lost, and so he wanted to put them in writing to assure that they wouldn't get lost. And these teachings that he wrote out are the ones we're going to study, called the 7-point mind training. They were kept secret not because it's a secret, it's not something that you can tell, something negative. No, they were secret because they weren't transmitted to those who didn't have the necessary conditions to take the essence. So it's not about an intellectual study, but actually applying the teachings to one's heart. So let's go back to what we said, the citation by Lama Tsongkhapa. Know how lucky you are to enter here. The teachings of Lojong, for me, they are among the most essential and direct instructions and most beneficial within Buddhism. These are just really the essence. And they require this commitment, the one that Geshe Chekawa said to Geshe Chekawa, to put them into practice. But this opportunity that we have, even as Atisha said, I mean, during the day we're distracted. At night we're sleeping. And normally, as we're sleeping, our thoughts are not necessarily virtuous, because we fall asleep with this mind that's distracted, and we're distracted by our problems and pleasures, and we're distracted by distraction itself and entertainment, and life goes by. These objects of knowledge are so many. The things that we can study within Buddhism, there's just so many, and outside Buddhism even more, but life goes by quickly. So we need to be sure that we're putting our energy into something that really, really helps us become helps us die a better person than the one that was born. So at the end of our life, we can look at ourselves and say, I did well. I don't have regrets towards the past. I feel sure within myself for my future. I was able to grow as a person, was able to interact in a healthy way with others. I didn't spend my life racking up trauma and resentments. In other words, we need a tool that makes our life meaningful. Somebody might say, Lama, okay, but I have a problem. I live in Milan, or I live, I don't know, it's not that I live in the middle of the woods and I can dedicate my whole life to meditating. And here, one of the fundamental characteristics of these teachings is that they have an ability. If we put our excuses aside, there's no reason to not practice. These teachings show us how to practice when we're happy and when we're enjoying, or how to practice when we're suffering or sad, when we're alone, when we're with others. In other words, tools are given to us so that there are just no excuses, to really make our life meaningful. It's important to direct our being, our thought, and speech, so that we can transform every situation in the path to increase love and wisdom. So, in a world that's just full of information, there's just an infinite number of things. To be able to access this seems like fortune. It's mind-blowing. So know how lucky you are to enter here. We're not entering just to a text. We're entering into a method, a tool that has been transmitted for generation to generation, from heart to heart, all the way back to Buddha Shakyamuni, and in particular to Atisha, Dromtompa, Geshe Chekawa, Chekawa. Be aware of. It says, know how lucky you are to enter here, and by thinking about that clearly, Gawe Shingidan, try to shine with joy, with a Shingidan, Gawa Shingidan. In this state of bliss, in this state of joy, with a luminous, bright smile, listen closely, abandoning the three defective vessels. Here, Lama Tsongkhapa reminds us that when we're in front of Dharma teachings, there's a certain necessary attitude to be able to listen to teachings. Not just in this context where I'm here explaining to you. This is also true if you're reading a book, or if you're listening to some kind of audio or watching a video. And there are two parts, very briefly. The first one is to abandon the three the three wrong vessels, and the second part is to develop the six right minds, let's say. So imagine like a vessel, a vase, or so in the first case, this vase is upside down. So what happens to an upside down vase? Can I pour water into an upside down vase? The greatest, purest of nectars? No, this is when we're physically present, but maybe we're sleeping, or our mind is somewhere else. I mean, we're there, but we're not there. This is the first thing that we need to avoid. The second one to avoid is being a container that is not upside down. It's right side up, but inside is dirty with poison. So if it's dirty with poison, it doesn't matter how much pure water you put in it. The water becomes poisonous, poisoned. So this happens when we listen to teachings, and within the vessel of ourselves, we're already listening with a basis of jealousy, of anger, of attachment, of arrogance or envy, or any other mental defilement that actually pollute what we're going to receive. So we should need to at least try to listen with a neutral mind. The third container, and I'm sorry, but most of us were not able to avoid it completely, is the container that is in the right position and is clean, but it has a couple holes. The water goes in, and little by little, it comes out. It's this fact that we listen, but we don't remember everything. There's a part of what we listen to that gradually we forget. The way to ensure that we don't lose what we've received is by using it. It's like we use that water, and we use that water to water the seeds that have been planted. And we also need the 6 awarenesses. And if we're able really to develop them correctly, it helps a lot to, how can I say, to not take the right, to not take the wrong road. The first awareness, the first discernment is seeing ourselves as a patient, as the patient. So if I go to the doctor, why do I go to the doctor if I'm the patient? Because I recognize that I need something. I don't go to the doctor because I want to study medicine or because I'm interested to know what he thinks about something. I go to the doctor because I'm the patient. I need something to cure me. And I listen to the Dharma not because I'm interested in Buddhist philosophy or because it's pleasurable to listen to the teachings. I listen to the teachings because I'm sick. What am I sick? What's my sickness? Selfishness, self-centeredness, anger, dissatisfaction, and on a deeper level, ignorance. And I'm in this so-called cycle of samsara. So I see myself as a patient. So I listen to the Dharma because I need it, and not for any other reason. So the first awareness is I'm the patient, and he who transmits the teachings to me is like the doctor. What's a doctor's role, his job? When we go to a doctor, is his job to cure us? No. No doctor can cure us. What does a doctor do? A good doctor gives us the right diagnosis and prescribes the right treatment, and then it's up to us to follow it. Every once in a while, talking to friends, Dr. friends, I say, oh, I think I'm so sorry for you. You give advice to the patients, and then they go, they come back to you saying you didn't cure me. And then if you ask them, did you follow the treatment? No. So if I'm the patient and the one who transmits the Dharma is the doctor, and the teachings that I receive is like the medicine. These are the first 3 awarenesses. So we're the patient. The one who guides me is the doctor, and the Dharma is the medicine. The 4th awareness is it's by taking the medicine that one follows the treatment. Because I can go to a doctor, he gives me the right diagnosis and the treatment. I go to the pharmacy, I buy all of the medicine that was prescribed, and I put them in front of me, and I think, wonderful. As Shantideva said, reading a prescription without taking medicine is like listening to teachings and not putting them into practice. You don't cure yourself by buying the medicine. You need to take it, and you need to also change your lifestyle and your diet to really follow a healing treatment. So otherwise, it's not going to help. So similarly, it's by putting into practice the teachings that one is following the actual healing treatment. So I'm the patient. He who transmits the dharma is the doctor. Is like the doctor. The dharma is the medicine, and by taking the medicine, I can heal. And the fifth point is I believe that I can cure myself. I have full faith in the fact that I can heal myself. And the sixth awareness is that this process, this healing process, is long and gradual. The fifth and the fifth and the fourth you can invert if you want. So I'm the patient, the guru is like the doctor, the medicine is the dharma, and then healing comes by taking the medicine. And I know that I can heal, but the process is long and gradual or graduated. So this faith that we can heal is essential. So when we listen, when Lama Tsongkhapa says, listen carefully, he makes a reference to the body and mind being together as one, reminding us that this moment that we're living is not going to repeat itself. We took an important moment of our lives. Imagine that most of us here today, I mean, our life is quite easy in many ways, but how much of your life is dedicated to your livelihood? In other words, how many vacation days do you have every year? Not that many. And normally a weekend, one is so tired, one needs to rest a little bit. But taking a week of free time it is showing how much importance we're giving to this. In the days, like these days, one of the most precious thing we have and the rarest thing we have is time, not money. So we're dedicating material resources, but mostly our time, which we have very little of. And so let's try to do it well. Let's try to be present and really take advantage of every moment in the best way possible. So, just repeating one more time. As Lama Tsongkhapa said, know how lucky you are to enter here and think about this clearly and shine with joy, with a radiant smile. Listen with attention, abandoning distraction and the three defective vessels. Now, what we'll go to see is called the seven-point mind training. 7-point mind training, this text written by Geshe Chekawa, whose story we briefly told before. So at the very beginning of the 12th century. And this text then, if another 8 centuries in Tibet, was one of the most important texts for practice. It's not a text of philosophy. It's not a text for prayers or meditation. It's a manual, a practical manual on how to direct our body, speech, and mind in this process of transformation, of developing love and wisdom. Just in a few words, that's what it is. And the name of this type of teaching is called Lojong. Lo means mind, and Jong means to train, to familiarize. In essence, we are training our mind to develop love, compassion, and wisdom. And if we can summarize Buddhist teachings in the development of love, compassion, and wisdom. That's the essence. And over the centuries, it was transmitted orally, and also transmitted orally, and then over the centuries, some 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 different texts, some texts that were slightly different, came out, and so at a certain point, at a certain point, Kyabje Pabonka Dechen Ningpo, who would be the master of Lama Ganchen, and he was asked if he could write this 7-point mind training with some additional notes and a definitive version, because there had been some different versions that had come up in those previous centuries. So we are following this text written by Geshe Chekawa and edited, let's say, with edited and annotated by Pabonka Rinpoche. I've received this text from Kachin Losang Phuntsog Rinpoche, the abbot of Tashi Lumpo in Tibet, and also my Geshe Thupten Rinchen, my philosophy teacher in India. And so before we begin, I'd like to give you the transmission, something that's given a tremendous amount of importance, because when these teachings were transmitted, what's important is he who transmits had previously received it and needs to believe in what he's reciting, and to oops, we have no sound. they're still waiting for a microphone. Lama says that when the Dharma is profound, the interferences are strong because we're going to do something very special, very important. And so we have some interferences. So Lama now will give the transmission of this text, and he's received this text from very valid masters. He believes in it very, very clearly, very deeply. And soon he'll have a microphone.
Tawa ten chuna mi lu tabro sam ma ge rik pe shila che nimbo ni gyang rang sa dre lam ge ngo wo kun she nga la tun sang gyu me kibro cha sumba kenge janju ge lam de o kim nga sumba kenge janju ge lam de gyurba ni ne ju dik pe kangwe tse kenge janju lam de gyu tila kang do gom de jar jarwa shi den tab ge chok jorwa shiden tabge cho shiba tsejegi nyamlen drilne temba ni Minga nimbo durdu pa tomga dadan jarwarcha tekchen powe damga ni tomga ni chulam che. Nga ba Lojong tse denpa ni. Chukun gunpa chikdu do pambo ni kyang tsowo son yide ba shi gyundu ten changwe tse ni lopa yin. Zhongwe takchen chenpo zhongda chenpo nga den yin yin kyang tomna zhongwa yin. Drupa Lojong ge tamze denpa ni. Chidun sumla takdo la dunpa gyurla ranso shayin la nyamba jumi cha shinde o shincho kanyang misa. Nyomong kanche ngui la jan rebu rewa tamche pa tukchen ge sepan shun sambo mi ten shangye mi gu chami gu nela mi ap. Ze kan lang la mi chu tolo mi cha gyo ge tse mi tu la du du mi ap. Ki ge yen la du mi tse ki ge yen la du mi tsel. Dumba Lojong ge labcha temba ni neljor tamje chige cha lonon tamje chige cha tome o toda ni la chawa ni nimbo ninga o nibo kanjun sebra cha nibo o nibo so dan de la rum kawa sumla labra cha gyu yi so namso la nyamba me ba namsong ge dreme sumdan dembra cha yula chome datu chan kyabdan ting chokun la che Kolwa namla takto gom kenge dala to mi cha tare tsowo nyamso la kolo mi cha rejo mi cha decho to chan tokcho ta che ba am duni ge tawra cha yu ma gon kolo ma de yu za mi do orche mi de chancho ge sem la deng to be sung ge juk du wa Rangi me pa mangwe gyu dunge tamnge kese ne dazin duwe damga shwe tani shiyang mi kyu to. Dedara lo jun dun du me tsaze dan trewa so kadang sar nyingi sungi chudu shindu mangwa shwe pelchere shun tsegi koren dan tsigna manyum drami shindu mangshi gashi tigi kapki saje la jarwa made bayan chiri. Gashe yondra minbe tsaze kya natso nangwa la nangwa che la te. Ranglu jamgun tsokaba chenbu sungyun targi lojong nimewe se lojong lo sangun ge duzi nimbo namge gwendo kun dribe tsaze chik chungna chi ma rung nyamring ne semamur. Shimba lor chamdo gende chamba lindu janjo lamrin chem check up Chikdu druba lurle lamrimba punso pandene tenche chidra kuwa shi tsadre mangboro shipta ki tsadze chokdre to sache gi gen te chokchi to paponga pe trumin pe triba drodun pe wara gyur chi chechun lame kutse rapten chi namkara tinle chochur gepa Lo san tembe drume sasum drove munse tatu ne gyurchi.
Lama is saying that there are seven points. We have actually 8 days of teachings if we take away also the day of the Maitreya empowerment. But that one of the actual points is divided into 2. So he'd like to divide the teachings in this manner. But we'll repeat what is just said today. I'd like to start with the beginning of the text. This book that I have here is one of my 5 favorite books, where there are these are texts written by Trijang Rinpoche or Pabongka Rinpoche. Trijang Rinpoche would be the master of Lama Kanchen. There's some parts of the text that are a little cryptic. And here we have the commentary by Trijang Rinpoche. So wherever there's doubt, he has this reference.
Omaggio alla grande compassione. L'essenza di questo nettare di istruzione segreta è stata trasmessa dal maestro di Sumatra. Dovresti comprendere che il significato di questa istruzione è come un diamante, come il sole e come un albero medicinale. Quest'epoca delle 5 degenerazioni sarà così trasformata.
Homage to great compassion. The essence of this nectar of secret instruction is transmitted from the master from Sumatra. Homage to great compassion. Here, first of all, even the part of Trijang Rinpoche makes reference. It says that at the beginning of the text, Geshe Chekawa decides to make reference to, says that at let's say we need water. That's very important at the beginning, during, and at the end. For example, if we have a seed without water, it's not going to germinate. Once I was told that a lotus flower can even stay for more than 2,000 years if it doesn't meet the right conditions. So the seed is an enormous potential waiting for the right conditions to be able to manifest itself. And what's the right condition necessary to germinate a seed is water. Once the seed has germinated, it's important now that this sprout, for the sprout to turn into a healthy plant and a tree, it needs water. And then for that tree to give fruit, it needs water. And similarly, what allows the seed that we have within us, the seed of enlightenment, our potential for ourselves to develop our own qualities like a Buddha, what germinates that seed of enlightenment within us is love. Love, compassion. Let's remember that love and compassion are like 2 sides of the same thing. And it's that same feeling expressed differently. Love is the attraction towards happiness, and compassion is the aversion to suffering. In just a few words, I love you. I want you to be happy. I feel compassion for you. I don't want you to suffer. And this feeling, this love and compassion, that's one thing, is what allows, it's what permits that seed of enlightenment that's present within each one of us to germinate. And once we start this spiritual path, what pushes us, what gives us the strength, what allows us to grow more and more is always love. And once we've reached Buddhahood, having developed our qualities to their maximum potential, what gives us the strength and allows us to continue to act, to benefit all beings is love. So love and compassion is similar to water, which is fundamental at the beginning, during, and at the end. The right term, it's fundamental at the time of the seed, to germinate the seed, to help the plant grow, and also to help the fruit ripen. So at the very beginning, we pay homage to great compassion, showing us that the most important part of our path is love, and without the development of love, we do nothing. What allows us to grow along our path is love. And starting with this at the beginning is also, it tells us, it shows us that this text will talk about the development of love. And so the essence of this nectar is something very pure that has this power to cure. So these teachings, like a nectar that can heal what? That sickness of self-centeredness, selfishness. And it's secret. It's secret because it was transmitted for generation. And where the teachers would choose, they would select a very, very few disciples to which to transmit these teachings, because it required that great commitment. And it was transmitted by the master of Sumatra. Where is Sumatra? Sumatra is an Indonesian island. Someone might ask, what does Indonesia have to do with Tibet and Atisha? It's important because Atisha, even if Atisha was a highly realized master, philosophically speaking, I mean, he started he was an excellent meditator, also of the tantric path, but he deeply felt that he needed to develop sincere love and compassion. And so for that reason, he went looking for a master that wasn't necessarily of great intellectual capabilities, but was the embodiment of this love and compassion that he wanted to develop himself. So don't ask me how, but Atisha in the 11th century found this master in Indonesia. So Atisha took a boat with 300 of his own disciples, and they spent 14 they had 14 months on the ship to sail to Sumatra. It's much more than the microphone that wasn't working, but I mean, in the story, they say it was very, very difficult. Once talking to an expert navigator, I asked him to think that it's possible that it would take 14 months to get there. And he said, yes, because there are many, the sea is very difficult to navigate, and there are many currents that would, the currents would actually take you backwards. So it's possible that it took 14 months. So it's said that they were 14 months at sea from India to Sumatra. So, and once there, they found this master Sir Lingpa, Guru Suvanadipa, and Atisha asked if he could be by his side to learn from him not only the formal teachings, but in all moments. And he stayed there for 12 years. He left Indonesia when there was an invasion, and the king, Buddhist king of the time, lost his power, and there was a great war. And at that point, he escaped and he went back to India. And these teachings, Atisha received them from Sarvanadipa in the island of Sumatra. That's why it says that this nectar of secret instruction is transmitted from the master from Sumatra. And Atisha would always put his hands to his heart when he would receive. He would put his hands at his heart when he would recite any teaching from a master of his. But from Guru Suvanadipa, he would put his hands at his crown, and his disciples asked him, "Why you say that all the masters are of the same nature?" And Atisha said, "That's true, they're of the same nature, but in our lifetime there's one or there's two that is able to touch our heart differently. And for me it was Guru Suvanadipa. So even if I have the same respect for all my masters, I have special gratitude towards him." These teachings. So let's imagine Atisha, with all of his knowledge, he went all the way to Indonesia with all the difficulties, the strife, and so here. So the meaning of these 7-point mind training, we should see them similar as a diamond, as the sun, similar to a medicinal tree. The diamond is said, even if it's even a small piece of a diamond, a fragment of a diamond, its brilliance is stronger and will outshine any other jewel. Siji in Tibetan. It's glory, it's charisma. But I don't know if we can say that a gem has charisma. No, we would say it's brilliance. So even a fragment of diamond is more brilliant than the greatest, the largest gem possible. And in the same way, just a small piece of Lojong teachings put into practice correctly are more brilliant than any other type of teachings. And it's like a ray of sunshine, because we just need one small ray of sunshine in a dark room. In the same way, we just need a small ray of sunshine would brighten up a dark room, and in the same way, a small piece of this small part of this train would brighten up, would clear up our ignorance in the same way. And like a medicinal tree as well, because a medicinal tree heals the sickness of selfishness. So even if you're not able to understand them completely from the beginning to the end in every aspect, and you don't become the world expert of Lojong, but you're able to take a small part and really put them into practice, it has an enormous power of healing. And not only, this is one of the most important things ever. in this time of the 5 degenerations, it will be transformed into the path of complete enlightenment. So the 5 degenerations let's see if Trijang Rinpoche discusses these 5 degenerations or not. No, he doesn't. The 5 degenerations, as I remember them, are the degeneration of time. The time is worth less time. Life goes by more quickly. There's the degeneration of the environment. The environment is less welcoming for life. It's a degeneration of food. Food can nourish, is able to nourish less. Degeneration of sicknesses, new sicknesses that are more difficult to heal, and the degeneration of medicines. They are not able to heal as well, and there's degeneration also of the beings with they have mental defilements that are stronger. It seems to me that we're in the time of degeneration. If we go to see, time is worth less and less. We have less material time, and the environment is always more polluted, and food. And even just a short time ago, I heard someone said that an apple today, to have the same nutritional value of an apple 50 years ago, you need to eat at least 5 apples. Why? Because the earth doesn't have the same characteristics as before. There's, monoculture, etc. Single crop farming. Here, we're not here to talk about all this, but Buddha talked about the degeneration of food, and then we also have the degeneration of sicknesses, new sicknesses, different sicknesses, more and more sicknesses that we don't know how to heal, autoimmune diseases, and then the degeneration of medicine. The certain medicinal herbs are harder to find. So we have wonderful medicines, but many that have severe side effects. And the degeneration of beings that have stronger and stronger mental defilements, more and more distractions, more anger, more hate, more attachment. This is the other degeneration. And then there are many other degenerations that we can talk about. But what's the most important thing here? I mean, now we shouldn't go into depression now that we recognize these degenerations. But the important point here it says, this time of the 5 degenerations will be transformed into the path of awakening through the practice of Lojong. If you're able really to practice with determination, with sincerity, taking these instructions to heart, then the more we are in times of degeneration, the more opportunities to practice there are. In other words, there are certain spiritual methods that require favorable conditions. One needs to find silence, free from distractions, in a healthy environment. Many conditions. Lojong is the opposite. The worse the conditions are, the more easily you can practice. And what does this mean? This means that, number one, there are no excuses. And number two, in the time where there really are degenerations, we have tools. And we can use these adverse conditions as a part of our path of spiritual growth. And for me, this is one of the most precious things that there are. From my point of view, I think that this part of the text is right on. I mean, sometimes there are teachings, they're marvelous teachings, but they require so many conditions to follow them well. Oh, yes, it would be wonderful, but it would be wonderful to meditate in this way, but how can I manage that with the time I have available? It would be wonderful to have this life conduct, to behave like this, but how can I do that given the context I find myself in? Oh, it would be wonderful to be it would be wonderful to do this, that, or the other, but not possible given given my situation. Maybe we think, oh, if I found myself in Tibet during the time of Lama Tsongkhapa, it would be easier. This I don't know. Life in Tibet at that time was very, very harsh. But the point is, we have a clear, simple, it's not complicated, simple method. And that's one of the reasons why it was kept secret. And there's another text where Atisha says, these teachings should not be told to people, to beings who are not. And maybe you've seen this translated as, these teachings should not be given to non-humans, thinking that they were making reference to spirits. And this is the Jewel Garland of the Bodhisattva, written by Atisha, which is at the beginning of this booklet. And if you don't have this booklet, I really strongly recommend you get it, because here we have truly the jewels. We have everything. So don't explain this. Don't tell these secrets to people who are not, which means people who are not ready to put them into practice, and that maybe they would take these teachings as a tool to become arrogant, or I'm a spiritually superior being because I'm practicing secret teachings. I'm better than you are. And that would be the beginning of the end. So it says you should not give these teachings to those who are not ready to put them into practice, because the method itself is easy. There are not great complex, intellectual aspects to it. No, it's really simple and linear. What we need is constancy and determination to really put them into practice. So we have with us a very, very powerful tool, something very special. And this text, and Lama Ganchen studied and practiced. This is a text that Trigchen Rinpoche read and practiced, Pabonka Rinpoche read and practiced, etc., etc. Not with these words, but this is the practice that Atisha put into practice, going all the way to Indonesia and back. So we have this opportunity. We have this opportunity to have with us these guides, because one of the most important, one of the most difficult things in life, really, is knowing what to do. We wake up in the morning, we follow a little bit our habits, we dedicate a big part of our life to our own livelihood. We eat and we sleep, and we take care of our our dwelling. Um, we spend time with our pleasures, etc., etc. But how do we make our life meaningful, and how do we transform what continues life to life? That's not always easy to know how to do that. So having a tool that having these guidelines, because what is transmitted here in the 7-point mind training is what we need to face a home, our family, and our work, our formal meditation, when we're alone, when we're with company, every situation we can imagine, we can apply these teachings. And so having something that's simple, valid, accessible, and something that we can practice, the value is enormous. This is what Lama Ganchen did with Tantra practice by transmitting the practice of self-healing, something that's direct and easy and manageable. So now we will give our dedications. This first part with the preliminaries, and we'll look at that tomorrow. We have a very good sound system here. I kind of invented it myself. I put all the pieces together. I understand, but so I'll look how I can resolve this, and I don't need to force my voice so much. So what happens is I ask to read the text. And read also the jewel garland of the Bodhisattva, and read also the 8 verses of mind training. And but I ask you not to read the last text, which is entitled. The title is "The Medicine to Vomit the Inner Tumor." This text, the medicine to vomit the inner tumor, it's for adults only, in the sense you need some stability in the Dharma. It's a text of self-criticism, and I know saying this that you'll want to read it even more, but I invite you first to read the other text, and at the end we can read that. This is very strong self-criticism, and if you might end up going into depression if you read it incorrectly, let's say, and that's not the spirit of the text. So now what I'll do quickly is I'll give you the transmission of the 8 verses of mind training as well. And with this, we will conclude for today.
Lojong tse gema sho so ya danyi zimjen damje la yishi norbole la pe tunje drube samba ye tato jeba zimbra sho. Kandu sudan drobe tse danyi kunle minda shin shen la samba taba ye tato jeba shodo chebar zimbra sho cholam kundu rangyo la tokchi nyomo kema ta. Da shen maron chebe na tsemda donne dobra sho ran shin imbe simje ni dikdun drabo nundun tse rinchen terdan cheba shin nyeba kawe chinzin sho. Dala shinge dradogi shekur la somirik pe kyonga rangi lembadang kyalka shen la bulwar sho. Kanla dagi penda pa rewa chewa kanshigi shindu miring nejena shenye damba tawra sho. Dorna ngodang gyuba ye pende mana kun la bu mi nodang donga mai nodang donga kun sawe dala lembrasho deda kun gan chege ge tokpe tima ma bakshim shogun gyu ma shebrlo sheme chingwa letro le sho. Ve lo leggo una volta in italiano.
Now let's read it. Without getting into we're not going to look at the explanation of this text, the 8 verses of mind training. We will be treating the 7-point mind training. But this is one of the most important texts in the Mahayana Buddhist tradition of Lojong. And let's remember that these two texts are also known, they're recognized in all Tibetan traditions, strongly respected and recognized among all the various traditions. The 8 verses of mind training. May I always cherish all limited beings by considering how far superior they are to wish-granting gems for actualizing the supreme aim. Whenever I come into anyone's company, may I regard myself less than everyone else, and from the depths of my heart, cherish others as excellent. Whatever I am doing, may I check the flow of my mind. And the moment that conceptions or disturbing emotions arise, since they debilitate me and others, may I confront and avert them with forceful means. Whenever I see beings instinctively cruel, overpowered by negativities and suffering, may I cherish them as difficult to find as discovering a treasure of gems. When others, out of envy, treat me unfairly, with scolding, insults, and even more, may I accept the loss upon myself and offer the victory to others. Even if someone whom I have benefited and in whom I harbor great expectations were to harm me completely unfairly, may I view him or her as a hallowed teacher. In short, may I offer, both actually and indirectly, to all my mothers whatever will benefit and bring them joy, and may I hiddenly accept on myself all my mother's troubles and woes. Through a mind untarnished by stains of conceptions concerning the 8 mundane dharmas, throughout all of this, and knows all phenomenon as an illusion, may I break free from my bondage without any clinging. In essence, the root of our suffering is our self-centeredness. And we have powerful tools to face them eye to eye with an attitude is determined but also kind to ourselves. There's no hurry to understand everything. This text that we just read might incite some doubts. The more we read it, the better. And the more questions that come, the better it is, because that allows you to expand your mind, to understand things better, and to go more deeply to have a deeper understanding. These texts, I've read them many, many times. I've memorized them. I recite them often, and they are very often a guideline in our own lives. When we find ourselves in situations, there are different levels of comprehension, and in these next days we will deepen our understanding. We won't be reading this text directly, but make reference to it. So now let's make dedications, and that's it for today. And I'll see if I can resolve this technical problem. Also for Lama Caroline, so that she also would need to raise her voice to be heard. Also for friends at home.
san tempe drume sasum ki druwe mus ne gyur chi kyewa kuntu yanda lama dan drame cheki pela long che ching sada lamge yunte rabzo ne dorje chang sho nimo dele tsendele nime kuyan delek shin ninsen takto delek pe kuncho sumki chingelo kuncho sumki ngodrubutsol kuncho sumki trashishon.
At dawn or at dusk, at night or midday, may the three jewels grant us their blessings. May they help us to achieve all realizations and sprinkle the path of our lives with various signs of auspiciousness.
At dawn or dusk, at night or midday, may the three jewels grant us their blessings. May they help us to achieve all realizations and spring all the path of our lives with various signs of auspiciousness. Ripetete dopo di me.
Repeat after me.
Repeat after me. Sem chosudro.
Sem chosudro.
Che lam tudro.
Che lam tudro.
Lam la parche.
Lam la parche.
Mion warsho.
Mion warsho. May the mind become the Dharma. May the Dharma become the path. May the path be free from interferences.
May the mind become the Dharma. May the Dharma become the path. And may the path be free from interferences.
Thank you, everyone. And now we'll have a short break, and there will be Lama Caroline, who will explain these prayers that Lama Ganchen transmitted many times. He used to call it the car puja. These prayers that we would do as soon as we get into the car. We recite them daily. It's the essence, very connected to what we'll see tomorrow, actually. So thank you, everyone. We'll see you tomorrow morning at 9 o'clock.